This episode is brought to you by Kelly Girl Lips and Lashes. Girlies, if you like the lashes, if you like the lips that you see me wearing on today, head on over to kellycarpenterwhite.com and get your lip gloss and get your lashes. It is where classy meets cute. Kelly Girl Lips and Lashes. Welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. We embark on a journey through the untold stories of the Bible's unsung heroines. Join us as we deep dive into the lives of remarkable women whose narratives are often overlooked but carry profound wisdom and inspiration. From their triumphs to their trials, we'll uncover the timeless lessons embedded in their journeys. Lessons that resonate powerfully with women today. Get ready for engaging, thought-provoking, and sometimes delightfully humorous conversations that shed new light on the remarkable women of the Bible. Welcome to a podcast that promises to enlighten, uplift, and entertain. Welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. I'm your host, Elder Empress. Hey there, welcome to Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. I am your host, Elder Empress. It is a delight to be with you again. I am yet faith walking in my stilettos, and I'm excited to bring to you this episode where we're going to discuss Michal. Yes, many of you may not have known who Michal is, but Michal is the younger daughter of Saul, and she was the wife, the very first wife of King David. There's so much salaciousness and juiciness in this story that I am excited for us to talk about it. So let's get into it. Hey girlies, I want to talk to you today. How many of you have experienced heartbreak so deep that left you in despair, left you despising and bitter and just downright angry? Well, you're not alone. It happens more frequently than you would imagine. And so today we find this in the backdrop of the life of Michal. She was the youngest daughter of Saul and the first wife of David. And this story is very salacious. There's a lot of disappointment. There's a lot of twists and turns. And so, I started to look into the life of this young woman, and my heart began to ache because I saw us in her story in so many ways. So we find Michal in the book of 1 Samuel. We first see her as she's introduced as King Saul's youngest daughter. We find in the backdrop of this story where King Saul is jealous of King David because he has been very victorious in war. And he decides that he wants to take the life of young David. He offers David his oldest daughter, Mirab, to be his wife, and David rejects it and denies. So when he finds out that Michal, his younger daughter, is in love with David, he decides this is a great opportunity to use my daughter's marriage to David to be closer to his enemy. And so he proposes to David, for my youngest daughter, if you can bring me back 100 foreskins of the Philistines, I'll give my daughter over to you in marriage. For David, this was a light thing. So David comes back with 200 foreskins. And Saul marries his daughter, Michal, to David. Now, from the perspective of Michal, she's in love with David. She's marrying the love of her life. She's getting everything she could have hoped and ever dreamed of. This is a man of valor. He's handsome. He is courageous. And her father puts her right in a position of getting the love of her life. The Bible says that even as they start their marriage and as they go on to be married, the intensity of Saul's jealousy starts to escalate, and he decides, I'm going to take his life. So when Michal learns of this, she helps David escape. And so when her father finds out that she was the one that helped David escape, he was angered by that. But David goes off and he's on the run for at least about 10 years. She helps him escape and she's not going to see the love of her life for 10 years. Inside of the 10 years, her father gives her over to another man, Paltiel. And in the 10 years that this run between Saul and David goes on, she never sees David again. Ultimately, David ascends to the throne. And when he ascends to the throne, the first thing he says is that, go get my wife back. And so the commander of the army goes and gets Michal back from Paltiel. And the Bible says Paltiel goes and follows after the carriage, crying and weeping for her, and was told and commanded to go back home. So now here she is, back with the love of her life, David, after 10 years of him being on the run. But here's where the story turns. Here she finds that David has gone on to marry other wives. He's even had children. And it becomes very clear to her that he never loved her. What do you do when you love someone and you give your heart over to someone who doesn't love you back? And it becomes very clear to her that she was nothing more than a pawn between two powerful men who was seeking authority and position. And many times when we are faced with disappointment, and many times when we are mishandled, rejected, neglected, and let down, it starts to emote as anger. And I started to see how she could be angry. The Bible says as he began to dance, David that is, began to dance before the Ark of the Covenant, and as he danced out of his clothes, we see Michal looking out of the window, and the Bible says she despised in her heart looking at him. Now, many would think that she was despising the fact that he was dancing before the Ark of the Covenant. But I would suggest to you that she had reflected over her life. And she's seeing a man that is getting everything he's fought for, everything that he has waited for. He has finally ascended to the throne. The Ark of the Covenant is being brought back to the city of David. This is a perfect situation for him. But what about her? She's sitting in the window, despising him. For he's gotten everything, but she's gotten nothing out of the deal. She's not even loved. The Bible never tells us that David ever loved Michal. And she begins to reflect about even how she was mishandled by her own father. You see, anger is a sublet of other emotions. It can be due to a lack of loss. It can be due to grief. It can be due to disappointment. And so I'm not angry. I'm hurt is really what I see in this whole dynamic. And I was able to identify with this woman as somebody who has just come out of a season of grief. And I realized that in my time of grief, things that would have made me just a little upset was intensified, and I would find myself angry. And through therapy, I realized that anger is one of the 5 steps of grief. So many times, ladies, we see our women that are hard to love. We see women that we just can't seem to understand. They're always emoting anger. But have we ever stopped to consider what is the root of that anger? What is it that drives that person to be angry all the time? Is it a broken heart? Is it disappointment? Is it being left, failed in a place of failure? What is it that drives you to being angry and despising and hateful? For Michal, it was the disappointment, the loss of love, the loss of the what she saw her life would ever be. You know how we are, girls, when we are fantasizing about life, even when we're getting married, or even when we're young women and we fantasize what life would be with the love of our lives. And some of us who have experienced divorce or very bad breakups, when we reflect back on what we thought it would be and what it ended up to be, can be very hurtful and ultimately cause us to emote anger. And so the Bible says when her and David have their final discourse about how she starts to say how you danced in front of the people out of your clothes and how ridiculous you looked, and he responded, I'll get more indignant than this. I was worshiping the Lord. I was dancing before the Lord. The Bible says that they did not have any more children. And some schools of thought would suggest that Michal was cursed and barren because of that. But it was an indication that there was a break in their intimacy. And so the anger, the disappointment, the rejection, the failure of the marriage and how she was used, and it showed how how it broke apart a marriage that had so much potential and opportunity for love and for them to grow together as partners. David and Michal would never be intimate again. They would never share a child together. They would never be recorded in the word as being happy. And so I would submit to you, those that are listening, those that are viewing, that we must have grace for one another. That woman that's emoting anger, that person that is just always bitter, very negative, carrying it around like a cloak of honor. We must have grace for that person. We must consider and sympathize what it was that drove somebody so pure and so um, optimistic to arrive at this place. And understand that if you are a person that recognizes I've been angry far too long, and I have been in this place of negativity far too long. The Bible tells us, for your broken heart, he is, he's a healer of the broken heart, and he binds up the wounds. And so from one sister to another, even as I walked through the stages and the season of grief, God began to heal my heart, and he began to bind up the wounds, and the bleeding began to stop. And I began to understand the things that was making me angry was really a subset of grief. That was really the root of it. And I had to focus on getting through the process of grief so that I can get my joy back, so that I can live in a place of peace. And so when God did that for me, that is my wish for you, that whatever has broken your heart, whatever has disappointed you, whatever that has caused you to be despising in your heart, that you would allow God to heal your broken heart and bind up those wounds so that you can get your joy back and so that you can walk in a season of unspeakable joy and peace and love. We never hear if Michal found love again, but we certainly have opportunities to find love again, whether it's love in a relationship between a man and a woman, love within a broken relationship between a friend, sister to sister, sibling, whatever it is, whatever the break is, it can be mended and you can find love again. So I want you to go and look at the life of Michal, and you will begin to understand why she was angry. And you will come to the fact and the realization, I'm not angry. I'm hurt. And I'm not being understood. I'm misunderstood. I have every reason to be hurt. This is not what I saw at the beginning. This is not how it was supposed to be. But God can heal whatever hurt you're going through and bring back joy. Listen, if you enjoyed this episode, I hope it was enlightening for you. I hope it is something that will compel you to go and visit the life of Michal. You'll find her in the book of First Samuel, as well as in the book of Second Samuel. Follow the thread of her life. See where things broke. See how she was mishandled, and offer up, not just for her, but for your sister and other women. Offer up grace, offer up patience, and offer up sympathy, because I'm not angry. I'm just hurt. So as we conclude this episode, I want to pose a question to you. What is it that drives your emotions? Are you driven by anger? Are you driven by just being in a place of despair? Does that drive you? Are you driven by disappointment? Is that the thing that drives your emotions? I want to hear from you. So feel free to leave your comments at the bottom here on YouTube and let me hear what you think about that. Has this conversation caused you to reflect? Am I driven by a negative emotion? And I want to hear how you respond to that or how you plan to deal with that. Sometimes we're just not aware that that's the thing that's driving us. We want to be driven by positivity. We want to be driven by optimistic outviews. We want to look on the brighter side of things and cause that to be the thing that leads us, and being very intentional of why we do things, because we see it as an opportunity for a brighter opportunity for us ahead, as opposed to I'm driven by anger. I want to get revenge. I want to get them back for what they've done to me. I want them to feel the hurt that I felt. What is it that is your driving force, your driving emotion? I really want to hear that. Let's start this conversation. It's far too many of us that are angry when we're hurt, and we need to deal with the hurt to get over the anger so we can get on to the other side. Listen, you can leave your comments on YouTube. You can also leave your comments on Instagram at Faith Walk Life Talk. You can leave your comments on Facebook, or even you can leave your comments on my website at faithwalklifetalk.com. Once again, this episode is brought to you by Kelly Girl Lips and Lashes. Go on over there, kellycarpenterwhite.com, and get your lashes and get your lip gloss, because it's where cute meets classy. Until we meet again, take care. Bye. Thanks again for joining us on Faith Walk Life Talk podcast. Stay connected with us by following our social media pages to catch all our latest episodes. If you enjoyed today's discussion, we greatly appreciate your feedback. Please take a moment to rate and review our podcast, as your input helps us to continually improve and deliver high quality content. I'm Empress Henderson, your podcast host. Until next time, keep walking in faith and living your best life. But most importantly, you must pray, girl. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Bye.